unplug from the Aegis base station and then connect it into the ESP transmitter. Turning this on, and you'll see the power cab immediately springs into life. Once it goes blue, it's paired with the base station, can select a locomotive, and immediately we're good to go. And as you can see, there is no physical connection to the Aegis base station. A big hello to you, it's so great to see you and I hope I find you well. I'm Jenny Kirk, welcoming you up here to Weir Yard, and today we're going to be talking control systems off the back of an all-new product from DCC Concepts called Aegis, which rolls a number of different products in their range all together in one easy, neat package, but also opens up the possibilities with your NCE power cab, giving you full access to the programming track without needing to buy an extra module, and also taking it wireless, opening up your model railway room to be able to do things like shunting like you've never been able to do before, because you were probably, like me, tethered to a point in your layout by the cord and just never quite could get the enjoyment that you really wanted, and probably didn't want to go to a massive expense of getting the Powerhouse Pro or go over to a completely new DCC control system. The Aegis gets the best out of your NCE, and today's video I'd like to thank DCC Concepts for very kindly sending an Aegis here for review, and also to TMC the Model Centre, who have sponsored today's video and provided a link which is in the description box down below to help you find not just the Aegis system on its own if you really like what you see, but also an incredible value package where they're selling an Aegis plus NCE power cab bundle for around £170 less than what it would cost you to buy the pair of them separately. So come with me and let's take a good close look at the DCC Concepts Aegis system and just what it could do for your layout. Today's video comes in association with TMC, the Model Centre. Check them out at themodelcentre.com. The website features extensive stocks of new models as well as selective pre-owned items where you can track down that bargain you've always wanted. Pre-order with confidence all of the forthcoming models from all the manufacturers. TMC also offer a renumbering and renaming service so you can get the exact identity of locomotive that you want. Why not also check out their value weathering, or go for something incredibly special with their bespoke service where you can choose from a more extensive weathered look right through to custom graffiti either off the peg or to a design of your choice. Check out TMC today at themodelcentre.com and start your model journey. Now, I must admit that, like a lot of people, I'm a self-confessed techno-Luddite. When it comes to electronics, I really do find it difficult to fold my head around what's going on, and just getting things working is quite a challenge for me. So Aegis was something that I must admit quite guiltily put on a back burner when DCC Concepts kindly sent one over for review, and it didn't get played with for quite some time. But actually, boy was I wrong. From the moment that I installed it, there's a lot going on with this, and I very quickly fell in love with just what it offered. There's so many things that I find myself now able to do, and you might remember from so many Monday clubs I've often said I just don't bother with doing shunting. And one of the reasons for that is it's actually quite tricky because you're tethered to a part of the layout, you're looking over to the other side of the room and you can't see what the points are doing when you're setting them, you can't quite see where the locomotive is. It's very boring to shunt at a distance, and what the Aegis system has allowed is that I can get up close and personal with the NCE system that I already know inside and out and be able to do the things which previously I just wasn't able to do. So that alone for me has been an incredible experience. So in today's video, let's get on and get the full install in and see just what Aegis can do. Also, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video to social media, and if you haven't already done so, do please subscribe to the channel and ring the notification bell to be the first to know about the new video content as and when it goes up. And we like to think that we put up a huge range of content. There's something for everybody, from reviews to how-tos to scenic guides and far more besides. We've got it all here. But let's get on and put Aegis from DCC Concepts through its paces. Aegis is one of the newest products from DCC Concepts, and you can think of it as being a combination of a number of different DCC Concepts products all rolled into one easy to use module, which really takes a lot of the mess out of wiring a layout where you have lots of different modules all wired together. Aegis actually just combines all of those. It also gives you the ability to make your NCE power cab wirelessly operated. And one of the things which has always been a little bit of a restriction on anybody using an NCE power cab is, unless you go to the Powerhouse Pro, going wireless is not really been possible up to now, and you end up tethered to your layout by this cable, which on a larger layout can be quite restrictive. If you want to get close to where you're doing some shunting, you can find yourself sort of leaning across the room, and it can be quite a nuisance. This also allows you to slim down the number of things like alpha panels that you wire into your layout, and the power and box for the 5 amp booster is something that's contained within this, so again you don't need to find space for a separate power and box, and it's fully compatible with anything else that you might have, such as an alpha encoder, which would be used, for example, to be able to take the output from the cobalt switches, which can then encode the signal and send it on your accessory bus. We've also got an ESP receiver built into this, so it's fully compatible to the ESP system, and it also opens up very easy use of a programming track. Now, in today's video, I'm going to keep it fairly simple. There's a lot of depth we can go into with this, and the booklet does detail all of that in here. But what I want to do is take this and show what kind of an improvement you can give an existing layout such as Weir Yard. And I'd like to thank DCC Concepts for very kindly sending this over for review. And we've also got a link down below that takes you to TMC, the Model Centre, who are doing a really good deal for both the NCE Power Cab and the Aegis system in a bundle, which gives you a really good savings. So we've got that link down below, or if you want, you can buy this system separate. For anybody who's already got a power and box like me, then this is actually really quite useful anyway, because it effectively would give you another power district. For anybody who's got a large layout with a lot going on, a lot of locomotives, you can very easily start to max out the power. So this combines that power booster, and you can use it in conjunction with additional boosters to have different power districts to ease the power distribution on your layout. For me, it does allow you to actually get rid of the power and box, a number of alpha panels, the ESP receiver, and really neaten things up to allow me to, in one simple installation, liberate my power and box to be able to put that on my garden railway. So nothing goes to waste with this upgrade. Up here in Weir Yard, the biggest thing is going to be making my NCE power cab able to be used wirelessly, and we've got this battery unit which clips to either your belt or the top of your trousers or skirt, and this can be charged through I think that's a USB-C cable, and then the NCE power cab just plugs in, and in turn we've got this lanyard and this easy grip hood that goes over the NCE power cab, and that actually is quite strong. This you can put around your neck, and then you can carry around your power cab, and it just gives you the freedom of your complete layout. All of the terminals on this unit as well Instead of soldering, we've got these screw terminals, and I do like the fact that these then plug in. So you can screw the wires to these away from the unit, away from any restricted space, where you can see what you're doing and then just plug these in. Now the unit itself has the same style aluminium frontage that things like the alpha meter, the alpha panels as well, all have. So this will match, it will mount into your layout, and it takes that power and box and actually incorporates them into your layout. So this would be a great option for, say, an exhibition layout that needs a lot of power, because everything then becomes self-contained. We've got a lot of buttons on the front. These have dual colour LEDs in to give you an indication of what's going on. We've got our alpha bus on the front. You would use that if, for example, you're going to plug an alpha central in for point control. That's where you can plug your NCE power cab in directly if you wish. And then we've got the plug there for when you want to use the programming track, and you can toggle between the main track and the programming track on these buttons. There's also more connectors on the back, and we will be using some of these. So we've got 3 extensions here that you would use, say, if you wanted extra alpha panels or to get the signal from this to another power district. And then we've got an additional 2 alpha sockets, and if you've got alpha encoders, which I use for my cobalt levers, then they will plug in directly on these plugs. So it's really nice and self-contained. There's a lot of other features, but what I'm going to concentrate on in this video is installing it, getting it running, and just seeing how much of an improvement we get in terms of that wireless control of the NCE power cab. This is the area of Weir Yard where I'm going to be installing it, and you can see that there's quite a hodgepodge of different bits and pieces here. I've got my alpha meter, which has been invaluable for monitoring what's going on power-wise on the layout. And then I've got the main alpha panel, which is where I plug in my NCE to control Weir Yard. But it's a fixed point, and you end up being tethered to this by the curly cord. This alpha panel down here is the solution which I had to adopt to be able to use a programming track. So this is connected just to my programming track, and I have to physically hot swap my NCE to be able to use my programming track. And as you can see, it uses a lot of expensive hardware for very little extra gain, but it is necessary because of the way the NCE works, and it's a bit of a shame. But with this Aegis system, we're going to be able to liberate both of these, use them on other layouts, use them elsewhere, and this will stay on the layout. Now, in terms of mounting, what I really do like about this is that if I match up the front panel of Aegis, that's actually the perfect size to go where my alpha meter and alpha panel are, and that means that all the wires on the layout will be in there at the same place. I can plug my AEU alpha encoders into these because they are already plugging into this. I've got my power feed to here, that's already in, but incidentally I've got a power supply for each of these alpha panels as well, plus we've got a power supply to power the alpha power and alpha box, which is my 5 amp booster. So I'm going to turn 3 power supplies into just 1, and that frees up a lot of plugs for other usage, and certainly plugs are always in short supply on any model railway. So the first thing I'm going to do is I need to take out the alpha panel, and in fact I'm going to make sure that the layout is turned off first. That's always a good precaution. And just going to undo the screws, obviously keep all these screws. They're all exactly the same screws, incidentally, so whether you're fitting an alpha meter, an alpha panel or an Aegis unit, they all use exactly the same screws. With all the screws removed, these just pull back out of the fascia, just work them through. There's the power, and I've also got 2 lots of cables here. One heads off to the power and box, and the other one heads off to my alpha encoder, and that's the first item that we've now able to liberate for use elsewhere. The alpha meter, just carefully pull this through. We've actually got 2 plugs at the back, so I'm going to unplug everything, slide it all out, and then we can start to establish what I need to cut out to make sure that we've got enough space to just slide in as a like-for-like replacement the Aegis system. I finished cutting out the hole. I've made sure that that fits. I've test fitted the Aegis. I also cut a new hole for the alpha meter. That is now fitted and wired back in. The input to the alpha meter is ready to go to the output from the Aegis. Essentially, I just used the same wire but much shortened that formerly went to the alpha box and power. I've got my connection to my AEU ready to go in, and then I've also got the cable that used to go from the alpha panel to the alpha box and power, and I'm going to keep this because I'm going to put one of the liberated alpha panels for ease of use with the alpha central. So there's a lot of uses of the word alpha in here, but essentially what we need to do is to make sure that we get these all plugged into the right place. So that's the main power out, and we're going to have the 2 alphas plugged in there, and this one, there's not really any slack on it. Just going to get this into there. So that's those plugged in. I can feed these wires back through. I'm now also going to take the power for the Aegis. I'm going to feed that up at the back, and then that gives us the power on that. I'm just going to fiddle that in. And one final check, we're not going to be using any of these auxiliary connectors. We will be needing a programming track, so I am going to use one of these. Just very quickly, just attach a length of cable to this. And again, I'm just going to feed this up and around the back, out through the hole. All of the jumpers I'm going to leave set as per the default. I'm not wanting to do anything fancy. So out of the box, this comes set up pretty much how I can use it for wear yard. I'm just going to line this up carefully. It's a very tight fit, there we go. And then just slowly get this all the way back. I can then just secure the fascia using some of these screws. These are really quite easy to make sure that we've got in place. With everything plugged in, it's just simply a case of pressing and holding the power button, and then we've got the layout powering up, and there we've got the ampage and the voltage showing, and it'll go through a period of stabilization until all of the decoder modules are charged, and then we're ready to run the layout. If the unit detects a short, which I can mimic just by shorting out the programming track wires, we get a flashing red LED. It's got the full short protection, and it actually gives us a signal here with the flashing yellow LED as to which track the short has occurred on. So you can see it's showing it on the programming track, which is correct. Once the short is cleared, press and hold the flashing light, and if the short is cleared, we've got control back again. When it comes to isolating the programming track, there's several ways you can do this. You could always use an accessory decoder, which will have a latching switch in to turn the track on or off, but you'd need to do this before selecting the programming track. Or you can do as I've done and add a switch in between. Whilst if your programming track is part of your main layout, you don't need this. For people like me who have a programming track that's set up a bit like this on a desk, sometimes it is useful to be able to turn that off so that it's not got live tracks whilst you're running the main layout, and it means that you can place things in this area without risk of shorting. The amount of equipment that Aegis has replaced here on Weir Yard is set out on the table in front of me. Alpha Power, Alpha Box, that's the 5 amp booster that's part of Aegis. It also gives you the Alpha panel at the front, plus I used a second Alpha panel to be able to have an independent programming track. These are the power supplies that go with the alpha panels. And it also gives you an inbuilt ESP receiver. These items can still be used elsewhere if you already have them. In my instance, I'm going to be using the power in box on my garden railway to really boost the power, and this is something that I would have been purchasing anyway. But Aegis means that actually I can just use these on that layout. The alpha panels will find a new home on some of my exhibition layouts, whereas previously I've had to transport these between Weir Yard and those layouts. They will now find a permanent home. And the ESP receiver means that this could be added to another layout. Now it comes to the USP, the unique selling point, and that is to make your NCE handset completely wireless. For this, we need to charge up the ESP transmitter that comes with the Aegis, and this is what the NCE handset will be being plugged to, and will provide both the power and also the communication to the Aegis base station. The kit comes with a USB cable, which allows easy charging with a USB-C type connector on the end. Plug it in, we get green flashes, and then once we get the blue light flashing in this pattern, that means that the transmitter is taking a charge. When it's fully charged, that light will stop flashing. At the moment, our handset is tethered to the layout just as it would conventionally. This is probably the way that you're used to using your NCE power cab, and it works just fine in this role. But if we want to go to the other side of the layout, perhaps to administer some shunting, it can get quite tricky, as there's only so much stretch on this cable, and eventually you find that you're reaching behind yourself trying to type in the commands on your NCE handset, and you're just nowhere near where you need to be. Previously, the only way of doing this would be an expensive upgrade to a Powerhouse Pro, or perhaps even adding in extra alpha panels around the layout, but that's a lot of wiring, and you'd still need to unplug from one port and plug back in elsewhere, and that could result in the memory on your NCE power cab not remembering some of the last commands that you put in and causing disruption to the operation of the rest of the layout. So that's where plugging your NCE into the ESP transmitter comes in. Once your ESP transmitter is charged, the first thing we're going to have to do is pair it out of the box. And this is actually quite simple. Just disconnect the power cab from the curly cord and leave this plugged in to the main cab bus. The other end plug to the ESP transmitter and then turn that on. You can then press the ESP pairing button, and this then goes into pairing mode, and then when complete, both lights should turn blue. Now that they're paired, this is something that you only have to do once. Reconnect the NCE power cab to the end of the curly cord, unplug from the Aegis base station, and then connect it into the ESP transmitter. Turning this on, and you'll see the power cab immediately springs into life. Wait for the light to finish flashing green on the transmitter. Once it goes blue, it's paired with the base station. You can select a locomotive, and immediately we're good to go. And as you can see, there is no physical connection to the Aegis base station. In this configuration, it's now really easy to move ourselves over to the other side of the layout. You can clip the transmitter to your belt and use the lanyard just to hold the NCE so that you can keep your hands free when you don't need to be entering commands. And we can get in really close. This is perfect for doing intricate shunting and to be able to see exactly what's going on. It's also useful if you've got, say, a locomotive that constantly derails. You can get in nice and close and see exactly what's going on while still being in full control with your handset. The wireless transmitter on your NCE handset also opens up possibilities to get really close and personal with areas of your layout that were previously too far away from the control panel to be able to get in and control the trains whilst watching them closely. It actually opens up a whole view of different vistas and operational interest where you can see what the points are doing at a glance because you're there next to it. You can closely control the locomotives because you're there next to it. And it certainly is something that really does open up so many possibilities in this hobby. Well, I hope you really enjoyed today's video and found it informative. And I must admit that my experiences of Aegis have been nothing but positive. I very quickly found that I fell in love with it. From the moment that I put it in, its neatness going into that fascia really was something that I was impressed with. That small unit combines a number of different DCC Concepts products, and what it meant was I was able to displace and cascade things like the power and box, which up here produce a lot of heat. It really can't be underestimated just how warm power and box get when running perfectly normally. And as anybody who's watched the Monday Club knows, that it can get quite hot up here in the summer. Aegis doesn't produce anywhere near that level of heat, and that was actually quite a pleasing little discovery, which was a fringe benefit of the installation. It also meant that I was able to displace a number of alpha panels, the power supplies that powered those, and none of these, it must be added, are getting wasted. The power and box will move out to my garden shed where they will power my garden railway, and O-gauge locomotives can be quite hungry on power, so there's always room for a 5 amp booster. If you had a large layout, it could also be the case that this would be a perfect opportunity for an upgrade to give you an extra power district, and Aegis will work in conjunction with additional power and boxes to be able to provide the DCC command signal through a number of different power districts. I really liked as well that it was much more reliable when turning it on. One of the things that DCC Concepts have tweaked is the startup, so that whereas before if you had a lot of locomotives with stay alives, a lot of point decoders, particularly the ones for powering solenoids which have a CDU on board, that can be quite a draw when you first turn your layout on. And whilst Aegis was not immune to a huge load tripping it out on startup, it did seem to be far more tolerant than power and box was. It gives you the alpha panel in the front of it, and really crucially, it integrates the use of that programming track, which whilst I had got to grips with using a programming track with NCE before, I effectively had it on a separate system which I was able to dispense with, and a lot of those alpha panels now will be moving to some of my exhibition layouts, so it's a no-loss upgrade. But the real benefit of this was the wireless control with that NCE, being able to just roam around the layout. And you could imagine that on a large layout, not being tethered to a little plug on your fascia somewhere, it means that shunting is now far more enjoyable than ever before. I always say I don't like doing shunting, I find it boring, but I've actually found myself during the course of filming this video contemplating doing shunting on Weir Yard, because finally I can get close enough to see what the points are doing. I can get close enough to actually do the coupling and uncoupling. I can get close enough that I can actually enjoy what I'm doing, because the thing about shunting is it's not really that much fun if you're doing it at a large distance. Now I've cut out the distance, and that's really been an amazing revelation for me up here on Weir Yard. As I said before, we've got the links down below to TMC for the bundle and for the Aegis on its own, and definitely this is a great opportunity to bring the control of your layout to the next level. But enough rambling from me. I'd really love to hear from you in the comments section down below. What do you think about the Aegis? Is this something, maybe you've already got one? How have you found it on your layout? And I'd really love to hear from you about getting up close to your models without being tethered to the panel somewhere on your layout. I'd also love to hear from anybody maybe who's contemplating this for an exhibition layout, being able to control your layout from the front, to be able to mingle with the crowd, and not be tethered, not have a cable to trip over, and not risk damaging plugs and such like by putting too much strain on that, by pulling it as far as you can. Do leave a comment down below, and if you've got any advice or tips or help for your fellow enthusiasts, then it's a great way to share your knowledge. But until next time, this is me, Jenny Kirk, saying you take great care of yourself. Happy modelling. Bye for now. Today's video comes in association with TMC, the Model Centre. Check them out at themodelcentre.com. The website features extensive stocks of new models as well as selective pre-owned items where you can track down that bargain you've always wanted. Pre-order with confidence all of the forthcoming models from all the manufacturers. TMC also offer a renumbering and renaming service so you can get the exact identity of locomotive that you want. Why not also check out their value weathering, or go for something incredibly special with their bespoke service where you can choose from a more extensive weathered look right through to custom graffiti either off the peg or to a design of your choice. Check out TMC today at themodelcentre.com and start your model journey. I'd like to thank everybody over on Patreon, and an extra special huge thanks goes out to our Patreon heroes. Without you guys over on Patreon, we really wouldn't be able to keep making the video content that you see on this channel. And don't forget that you can also head on over to patreon.com/JenniferKirk and check out the different tiers of rewards. Thank you so much. You are absolute legends.